legend, I would like to actually call her. I'm joined by today, is a National Film Award and a numerous award winner. Her journey to success has definitely not been an easy one, but has been a very fruitful one indeed. And I'm joining her for an interview after what it's been, I think, since the pandemic, we did like an Instagram live, if I remember correctly. And it's been a long time in the coming. So I'm really glad to have the wonderful Divya Dutta with me on filmishilmy.com. So thank you, Divya, for joining us. And congratulations on a great year that you've had with numerous releases. Bandish Bandits has just released as well. And 20 years of Visa. My goodness. Amazing.
Thank you so much, Anuj, and thank you for waiting. And because I've just been shooting, but I really wanted to do this interview since you rightly said it's been a while we spoke. And yeah, looking forward to having a great conversation with you.
As always a pleasure, Divya. Thank you so much for that. All right. So I think before we get into Veer-Zaara, because it's such a beautiful subject, I think I want to talk a bit about the releases that you've had this year. You've had Sharmajee Ki Beti, you had um Bandish Bandits, of course, and you also had Sikandar Ka Muqaddar. So three
That's a
very
guest appearance, so you can say 2.5.
two and a half, right, 2.5, nice.
No, but I must say, I mean, I just did it as a very friendly appearance, but it's gotten me so much love. I'm pretty surprised.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Literally, like I think the fact that it's had that reception, people actually consider it to be a proper full-fledged role. So that just goes to show, I think, the influence that you've had as an artist. But no, look, I think it's very wonderful because let's talk a bit more about Bandish Bandits and I think Sharmaji Ki Beti because I think these are very in a way hopeful characters as well as it kind of battling some sort of a darkness as well, right? I think that's the best way I can sort of summarize them. So I think given the gamut and of years of experience that you've had, Divya, when it comes to playing characters with a slight darker backdrop which has some sort of a soulful representation, how have you managed to learn the art of mastering that?
Well, that's a very good question that you ask. I guess it's anyone you talk about, any character that you pick up, or any life you pick up, yours, mine, anyone else's. We do have our baggages. And I wouldn't choose to call it dark necessarily, but you've had your experiences which do add those vulnerabilities to you, your pluses and your minuses. And I guess when you take them with you for a role, it really adds those layers that you need. And for me, what becomes very important is that when I take up a role, I need to really feel very correct about it because it's very interesting that as actors, we really live those lives for that stipulated time of as long as you're shooting those, but you're living that character. You're seeing, you're feeling what they felt for that time. And then you have to really give your 100% to that, be it their past, be it their future, be it their present. I had learned something really nice from Rakesh Mehra, and I really held it very tight to myself. Was when I did Dilli Che.
Hmm.
Um, I was very inhibited as an actor, even though very hardworking, but very inhibited. So everything felt right, and then I still felt something was amiss. And I just asked him, I said, "So something's not feeling right," because I had a very bold role, and I had just come from Punjab, and I was a very shy person, and it was post Veer-Zaara. So he just very silently and quietly came and he just whispered and he said, just keep Divya out for a bit and let Jalebi come in. And that I think was such a great thing to learn that you have to let the character speak the language, not you. So I let that happen. I take the character as a life which has a baggage, which has a past, which has its dark facets or not. But you take it into consideration and move forward and then let them be as soon as you leave that role because otherwise it's going to be crazy.
Sure. No, very beautifully articulated. And I think yeah, you definitely have to allow that character to also have access to you, and I think you're almost essentially a vessel, I think as actors, because you have to allow that character to enter, and of course you also then be a command for it to go as well. Gosh, I feel like I'm talking about a possession at this point, right?
It is.
It's literally like a possession, right? Like actually, like in a very positive way, though. But no, I'm really glad you mentioned this actually, and the reason why I asked this sort of dual sort of personality traits, because I've noticed that in your films quite often that you will have this very cheerful and very chirpy persona. I mean, of course, not all of your characters, of course, but
No,
the ones that I have seen, and some
that's
of the
me.
yes.
That's me actually. Uh,
Yeah. So
Not the roles I do, unfortunately, are very serious ones.
true. So what I was gonna
Not
say,
unfortunate, ironical.
yeah, exactly. So what I was gonna say is that there is this almost exterior which is very like soft, very chirpy, very fun, but then within it there's also like almost layers of I don't want to use the word darkness, but very socially heavy sort of subjects that is there as a sub layer. So what is it again, David, that you think that really you bring alive on screen, when it comes to having these dual personalities or these dual sort of layered characters actually on screen?
Anuj, we never are one layer at all. I mean, we have different facets to us, not just one, not just two, but many. You will be very surprised to know, okay, this also is a part of you. So it's just that what needs to be latent, what needs to be very active at that point of time when you're portraying that character. So also, I think when you let the role speak, there is a certain aspect of you which certainly joins that role. So
Hmm.
which one comes, you wouldn't know. Like I did this film called Dhaakad where I played this negative role,
Oh,
and it was like a very what do you say? She was in many ways a sadist, mean machine, and
wow.
so I was doing this scene where I'm about to kill this character, which was played by Sharib, and I don't know what happened to me, and I just looked at my boots. I said, the designer has given me really good boots, but in the sari they don't show. And this is happening in the shot. And I just lifted my foot and I put it on his shoulder. He
Oh.
was so shocked. And so was my director that what just happened. And I have no idea why that happened. But I mean, I'm not that way at all, and I wouldn't think that twisted at all. But I think Rohini was thinking like that probably, and some kind of so it just is a mix and an amalgamation of a lot of things that come together. I wouldn't say which aspect of mine I leave and which one I bring out. Um, we have about 1,000 of them in us. You will feel vulnerable. You will feel fearful, you will feel strong, you will feel angry at any given situation. So you just have to see which one you get out.
I think spontaneity is such an important aspect of not just about acting, but I think of life as well generally. And I think spontaneity is a very interesting way to segue, I think, into Veer-Zaara, because I believe when you got the phone call about the film. You were shooting in London. You were hesitant in actually doing the film, if I recollect very well. I think you spoke to your mother, and your mother said a very beautiful thing to you. I think in an interview you said this, where in the starry industry, make sure you shine where people take notice of you. And oh boy, I think Shabo is definitely one of my most favorite, I think, subplots ever, I think, in Indian cinema history. 20 years now, when you look back at that character, what sort of thoughts and what sort of perceptions cross your mind, which may not have been there when you first got that phone call from Aditya Chopra?
Well, I think you feel it's like a game of chess. When you look back at that point in time, you feel my move hasn't been correct or something. But when you won that game and you look back, say, hey, everything was in place. You just didn't realize it because you're so engrossed in just playing your, the pawns and everything. So it's just like that. I mean, you just look back and say, okay, whatever I did with full sincerity. And as you remember the conversation I had with my mother, I had it in my mind, and one thing always remained very consistent was that whatever phase of life, career I am in, there has to be a certain hunger, there has to be a certain excitement, there has to be a certain zest to rediscover yourself all the time and do something different. So yeah, I think that I happened during Veer-Zaara. And when I look back with a broad grin, and thank God that such a beautiful film happened to me.
Hmm. Now, I want to learn a bit more about your character process as well for this, because see, it's a very integral part of the film, right? Like, I mean, if we think about it, I mean, the whole story of Shabu, and in a way, she kind of acts as a very strong catalyst towards, their meeting, and also in a way, their distance as well. Um, for the Punjabi that you speak, and from what I'm aware of, I think with a lot of my friends in India who are also Punjabi, I feel like the Punjabi that you speak is kind of different in Veer-Zaara. Is it
Yeah.
true? It is different, right?
It is, I think all our probably the generation of our grandparents and everyone, they used to speak that Punjabi, and so I still remember. At least my parents were from. My father was from Dera Ismail Khan, and they had this certain language which they spoke, which was close to Punjabi, but it had its flavor, it has its dialect, and
Hmm.
that's very interesting. And that is what I think. Came from our grandparents to us, and whoever heard that accent or that dialect felt this was something that they heard in their own houses, and that's why I think that connecting quality that that language had. When you really want something from the core of your heart, universe conspires, but the ways it gives it to you can be very different from how you probably perceive it to be.
Hmm.
So yeah, I definitely wanted to be a Yash Chopra heroine, and when I got this role of, I thought, अरे heroines तो heroine तो pretty ज़िंदा है, तो ऐसा कैसे? And then um, as I had this conversation with my mother, I said, Mom, this is the biggest production house, and if I become the best friend here, I'll be the best friend forever,
Hmm.
because the industry is known to brand you. So she said, do it so well that people write roles for you and say, who's this girl?
Hmm.
And have that hunger, have that X factor, add your own things. So that kind of stayed with me. And when we were watching and I really worked hard with what Adi wanted me to do, what Yash Uncle wanted me to do, everything. And I'm sure everyone worked hard, but this was like I needed to prove myself in that galaxy of stars. So when the premiere was happening, I was holding my mother's hand tight, and when I came out at the interval, that was the first time, after, in spite of being in the industry for 7, 8 years, that people actually surrounded me, took my pictures, and asked for autographs, and they asked Yash Uncle, where is this girl from? Is she? Have you introduced her? Is she from Pakistan? So, in very unassuming ways, I actually was reintroduced by Yashji. So I would say, and then of course, he got me that big commercial success that I needed that time. Maybe not as the lead, but as an actor of worth and insignificant and absolute significance. And I think what we see today in today's times, when female actors want to play just actors and character oriented roles and not just dancing around,
Yeah.
I think I began that 20 years back.
Yeah.
And
True.
I guess the mantra is that you don't really keep encashing that image that has given you so much love. You have to leave that comfort zone and just move ahead. If I said, okay, Veer-Zaara has gotten me so much love now, let me just keep doing Veer-Zaara type roles, then I was done by in 5 years max.
Hmm.
But I sat at home for a year and a half after Veer-Zaara because I didn't want to do those roles until Dilli Che came to me, then Stanley Ka Dabba came to me. They were different films, and I think after so many no's is now the past 3, 4 years people realize she doesn't repeat what she's done before, and they nicely and happily come to me with different roles and diverse roles. There's no stamp given to me like, oh, go to her with this role. No.
Hmm.
So I'm glad that that perception has been broken of having an image.
It's true actually. A lot of the times where I've interviewed a lot of actors recently as well. I think I did Shefali Shah's interview. I think Vaishali Thakkar as well, a very wonderful actor I spoke with recently. And this topic came up actually about, waiting for the right roles and, not giving in to the pressures of commercialism and money for the sake of your satisfaction as an artist. And it's a very difficult balance to strike, especially when you're not in a I don't want to use the word privilege, but when you're in a bit more of a comfortable position in life, where you've got a bit more cushion around you, where you're not completely rock bottom, because at that point
Absolutely.
you have to make the money, right? So at that point in time, what was your cushion actually, and what gave you that sense of comfort and perhaps motivation even? I think my mom was probably one of them, I'm sure, but what else would you say was kind of that comfort for you in terms of waiting for the right opportunities to come about?
She and she alone. It was just and absolutely just my mother, who was my rock that time. Who, like you rightly said, I had this freedom of choice to have said no to so many films to wait for the yes I wanted. Uh, but I was fortunate, you're right, that my bills were looked after. My mother had gotten me a house, she got me a car, she got me a house help. She said, do what you want, and if you ever want to come back, come back. So, with such unconditional being there for your child. I think what also crept into me was this hunger to prove her trust in me right,
Hmm.
that she hadn't gone wrong with such an unconditional faith and trust in her child. Because बच्चा तो कुछ भी बोल सकता है ना कि
Hmm.
I was a good actor. I won lots of awards. But that was college, and I represented the entire country in Japan through Red Cross. I had done all that. I had excelled in my school and college, but that necessarily did not mean that that would translate into me being an actor.
Yeah.
But she still showed so much trust in me. I had that thing in me that I don't want anyone to tell my mother, "Ki Dekha, we told you so," not to send her. I wanted to prove by myself, and I wanted to do it on my terms, and I was in no like hurry as such. So yes, I had that cushion of my mother telling me I'm there, until she saw that I was on my right path. And yeah, that really helped me, because also I think when you see rejections and everything, you need that one person who really hears you out.
Yeah.
Because these days, with social media and everything, you just want somebody to acknowledge you, somebody to hear you out. Um, there are people behind those fake names and everything, just asking for attention, but no one's there to listen really. So I had this one person at home who told me, listen, life's not stopping if you don't get that bloody film. It's okay. So
Hmm.
when someone says that, it's very reassuring. And trust me, when I look back, as you asked me earlier, it feels I'm glad all that happened, because I am who I am today because of what I experienced yesterday.
Hmm.
So it makes you it throws you off. You really want to get off from where you are. You think you've sometimes just made a mistake. Then you say, no, 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 I think I'm on the right path. My passion's just there. And then you get up, but you need that one hand to just hold you and say, hey, I'm there. And that's what I think I was lucky with.
No, for sure. Right. I think it's that sense of dedication and passion towards filmmaking, which I find is missing tremendously in today's day and age, Divya. I'm sure there are good filmmakers out there, and I'm sure there are passionate storytellers, but कहीं ना कहीं वो जो एक essence था, एक innocence जो थी filmmaking को लेके, वो आज missing है. Do you think that's why a film like Veer-Zaara is still resonating to today's day and age as well? Because of the fact that it was very sheer love for the storytelling.
I would say I don't really agree that you don't have that kind of dedication today.
Mm,
In fact, you have lots of directors who are out there telling some really kick-ass stories. But of course, Yashji was like what do you say? He was the milestone for people. Like, okay, the landmark. Like, you have to be, you have to make like him because he had actually made the best of cinema. Absolutely. And I have grown up watching Yash Chopra films, and I've fantasized being his heroine like forever. His films were a delight with, yes, as you said, nuances and innocence and love, and beautifully written with amazing songs. And what a presentation of actors. Um, so I do feel now it's become, but I think it always was. At the end of the day, it's a business,
Hmm.
and you do have proposals being made where this hero and this heroine, will it sell, will it not sell? But apart from that, when you have directors and writers writing and OTT, I think, look at this, the show that has released today, Bandish Bandits. It
Yeah.
comes in a time, when season one came in. It came in a time when you only had these thrillers, whodunits, those kind of shows coming on OTT, which were doing the best stuff. And then comes a show which is only totally based on classical music. Now, how did that resonate with the audience so beautifully? With kick-ass actors, and such soul-stirring music. And now season two, oh my God, the kind of love I'm getting for I think people have already started watching for the show, for me. It's amazing that someone out there is very, very relentlessly, passionately saying his story without bothering about what anyone has to say about, the risks or so-called this and that. He's straight gone and what, and there's so many other directors who do that. It's amazing. I think we have a lot of them, but yes, they all need that platform to stand there and say, hey, I have a good film
Hmm.
to make.
Hmm. I'm gonna pick your brains a bit further. Why do you think they're not, especially those filmmakers who are really passionate, why do you think they're not getting that platform to display their ability and their skills in doing so? What do you think is the main barrier?
It's not like they're not getting it. It's not enough around. I mean, if there are 50 great directors, out of that, probably six can really put their foot down and say, "Listen, this is what we want, and this is how we're going to make it." But sometimes, maybe the producers, maybe the financiers, or someone have this thing. Okay, no, take this hero. They're more saleable. It's at the end of the day business. But what is now very important is content, and we really need to let these directors and writers put that content out nicely. And I think the audience is very ready for it. You see all that great content doing well. You see a Lapata Ladies doing well. You see all we imagine is light, reaching all over. Um, you talking about these movies. So
Hmm.
that's great. Bandish Bandits, everyone's talking about. Wherever I go, say, "Oh, you're in season two." Um, it is there. People want to see it. I'm saying sometimes what the audience want doesn't necessarily translate into what the producers think the audience
Right.
wants.
Right.
That's a very twisted way of putting it,
No, but
but
it's
that's
true.
how it is.
Yeah, no, no, I hear you. No, I hear you. And I think the biggest problem that I face, and I think Divya, it might be really good to maybe if you would like to chip in this as well. But one thing that I've realized is that I feel like corporate structures have become very slow they always have been slow maybe, but I've realized that they've become very slow in picking up the latest trends and the trajectory of that's happening in society right now. I feel like what's happening is that it disconnected because I feel like films that were made or worked in the pandemic time, like before pandemic times, won't necessarily work anymore, if you know what I mean. And I feel like certain corporate structures are a bit slow in picking that up as well. Do you think that is the case, or do you think that they're trying to evolve as fast as they can and there isn't any other way to really, pick that up and make stories work more well at the box office?
I wouldn't generalize that at all. There are different cases for everything, but I think what I have seen, um, uh, I have been a part of some really beautiful stories like Sharmajee Ki Beti, like Bandish, like so many others, and they've got those platforms to tell the story the the way they want it on their terms. Not saying that there are other people who probably don't get it, but I'm saying you cannot generalize anything. It's not just one thing that matters. It's like a whole bunch of things that matter to make a project and put it out there. And it's not really easy. Just getting money for these things, even for the producers, because there has been a certain recession with the market as well. So let's not
Mhm.
blame anyone as such. I do feel everyone wants to bring in stories. Like I was watching Panchayat and I was watching all these. I mean, there are people who really want to bring in these stories and tell them the way they want to tell them, as simple, as beautiful, as innocent as can be.
Sure. And one thing I really love about you, Divya, is your ability to really look at life with a very optimistic lens. I think it's so heartening to really genuinely see that. And we were talking about how easily actors can be bracketed. Like how you were saying about after Visa, you took that break, and your actors are always susceptible to becoming that. Um, I think for you, how important has it been to not be bitter about failure or to be very disheartened or negative or pessimistic about setbacks in life and your career as well? Because it's so easy for us to really become, victims and to really victimize ourselves. But it takes a different kind of spirit to really come up and be like, you know what, it's fine, we'll get over it.
I'm not a superwoman, Anuj, at all. One does have one's share of all these feelings that you speak about. Um, but the mantra is that you face these situations, you accept them, and then it depends on how badly or how passionately do you want that thing to happen.
Hmm.
Either you give up, you have that choice to say, okay, I quit, or you say, no, I don't, because I came for this and I will make it happen. And then you go step by step. And I have a very beautiful line in Bandish Bandits, which is in the trailer, which
Hmm.
says, सीखना है तो दौड़ने से पहले चलना सीखो. So you've got to take those baby steps one at a time and just move bit by bit, make your place. And it's so beautiful that the paths that you made, a lot of other younger girls are now following that same path. So it feels nice. It feels that this was my path, and I am very proud of it that I made that rasta for myself.
Hmm.
And I think about the positivity, there is no other way. I mean, otherwise, you'll be sitting somewhere because it's a very crazily competitive world we live in. And the stakes are high because everyone is only looking at you, everyone's just watching you. It's not an easy space to belong. So, all you can do is just be very positive about things that haven't happened, because there's always a reason that something hasn't happened. And when you look back, it all makes sense. When the
Hmm.
jigsaw just takes its own shape, you know why it didn't happen. And I have never regretted anything at all. And I think the thing is to just flow with life and
Hmm.
just enjoy this moment. Otherwise, to stress खा जाएगा सबको.
When Bandish had, came along, what was your thought process then? And after doing it, how do you feel about, having gone through that entire process of it?
I think Bandish was a very tough project to belong to because it's music and you cannot take music lightly.
Hmm.
And after having seen season one, the pressures, the stakes are really high because everyone's like, wow, Bandish Bandits won. It was crazy music. It was, and look at those actors and everything. So you have a franchise which people already have loved and invested in, and
Hmm.
then you are entering that show. So it is like an edgy place to be because you're a newcomer in many ways. But the most interesting was how I was cast for this role, because this was earlier initially a male role written for a male actor.
Oh.
And I just happened to speak with Anand and we were generally talking. And I said, I just love Bandish. And he says, hold on to that thought. Would you like to do season two? I said, of course, I'd love to. He says, give me 24 hours. You will not believe, Anuj. He was back within 24 hours. And they were already contemplating to change it into a female role. And when that call of mine came, it just got stamped out. And that role was written colored out so beautifully by Anand Tiwari, the director, that the graph was like, oh my God, there was no other way. This teacher had to be a female, and I think it was such an unnerving experience for me also because I was learning Western music, Western classical music, operas. And they gave me the songs. Yesterday we had a screening, so everyone said, "Oh my God, look at your lip sync! How tough was that? How did you do it?" But there's such a funny story behind it because when Anand gave me those notes to sing, I said, इसको कैसे याद करते हैं? Because I am like a common person, right? I would love to hear it, but hello, I can't sing.
Yeah.
So he said, yeah, just practice. And he gave me this amazing singer called Vasundhara. He said, she's going to teach you the notes. And those notes, they are spelled another way, they're pronounced another way,
Yeah.
and there's a way you have to use that body language. So I was like, oh my God, how am I going to manage? So then I called Atul Kulkarni, who done season one, and I said, listen, how do you do this? Because
Mm.
this is something else. He says, just listen to it anytime and sing it and just whatever. I think I took that singing very seriously. I put my AirPods, went to the garden, and I opera is like this,
Yeah.
that note. And I shocked my vocal cords by shouting my way through all the notes. Everyone in the garden's looking behind what just happened to this actor. But I didn't realize. And I came back and my throat was gone because I had shouted my throat out. Absolutely. Then I realized that you have to do it gradually. It's not easy at all. But the beauty is, once I had done it, my teacher was standing there, my director was standing there, and I was performing in front of them. And when it all happened beautifully, I could see tears of joy in the teacher's eyes. She was like, "Thank God, it's been beautiful." So it's what I'm trying to say is, as an actor who's been around for 30 years,
Mm.
to unlearn the entire process of how a typical Hindi film heroine sings and dances, to take on an absolute, to be a clean slate and take on an absolute new way of singing the Western classical music was a journey which is amazing. And I think that nervousness, that excitement, just makes you feel you just started. So I think it's great to be a part of such shows, such projects.
No, definitely, especially that. But like you said, it is a very popular show. Season one was very, very popular, and I think when you are entering something like that, it's really interesting. And I think what also fascinates me is what you said about unlearning as well, because
Mhm.
it's interesting because you were part of a film called Sur, A Melody of Life in 2002, which I actually really liked as a movie. I thought it was a really well-made film. And even now the songs are so beautiful. That was also had a very strong musical backdrop, but I guess nothing really, I guess this must have really pushed you to another level because it was opera, like you said, and it really seemed very challenging.
It was a beautiful film, sir, but those films were not mine, Anuj. I
Yeah.
was trying to prove a point by being very existent, if I may say so, that I wanted to work with good directors. I wanted to make my presence felt. So they were not very, what I would say, I just belonged to those films, and I'm very proud that I belong to those films, but they were not my films. It's
Yeah.
now
Mhm.
3, 4 years to this that I have roles that are written for me. I'm doing titular roles. It's a different story. So now I get more to perform. More stuff is at stake than it was earlier. So I like it. I like the way this graph goes, and you look back and say, "Yeah, girl."
It's interesting, but you know what? I still have to say though that even and I get exactly what you're saying, and yeah, it is amazing to see that you're getting the titular characters, you're getting the roles that you aspire to have, and you're finally getting that dues. But I also have to say to you, like it was very wonderful growing up and watching your films as well, like Agni Sakshi, for example. Like I remember watching O Yara Dil Lagana, and you were like in the audience, like you were like sort of cheering on me. So it was also beautiful to kind of see such things,
Of course, that survival instinct always. And I was considered this cute little girl. I was barely 17, 18, I think, that time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was considered a lookalike of Manisha Koirala. And they really looked for me, asking, Ye ladki kahan hai? Because she looks like Manisha, to cast me as her sister. And it was the parallel lead for me, which excited me so much that, hey, I'm going to get to dance. And I did a lot of dances that time with all those heroes, satiated all my fantasies of being that typical heroine. But I think later I did realize that I want to do something more as an actor. And I
Yeah.
think that's when Train to Pakistan happened to me, and doors to all the other kind of makers who I also wanted to work with opened up.
But another thing that I've realized as well, especially I think in some of the Punjabi films that you've done, Train to Pakistan, Veer-Zaara, is that you've been this very beautiful voice of both the countries. A very human voice. Actually, I don't know if this was again, I don't know if it was by design or not, or maybe some sort of influence, maybe growing up hearing stories. But partition is such a bleak subject, and I think to really be a human voice, between the two countries, I think it's so heartening actually when I look back and I think about the filmography that you've done.
I've just done one more like that.
Oh yeah.
It's a beautiful film, very emotional. Just takes you to the niceness of and the goodness of life. And yeah, I guess it's been strange that a lot of films, be it Train to Pakistan, be it Shaheed Mohabbat, be it so many I've done, Veer Zara,
Hmm.
and have been like that. And yeah, there was no design; they just organically happened.
No, but it's such a need of the hour. I feel like it's such a need of the hour because it's so beautiful to see such human stories. Like I mean that one scene in Veer-Zaara for me always touches my heart. It's when Kiranji is with Shah Rukh and obviously she comes to Shabbo's home and obviously where she's kept or the hideout and she's kept Shah Rukh there and that whole sequence was so beautiful. The dialogue exchange that happened, it was so beautiful. I think for you as well, Divya, I think when it comes to films, especially when it comes to conflict, whether it's political, whether it's human, whether it's emotional, how important, and I know it might sound like a very obvious question, but I think it'll be nice to hear from you about it, about having a human voice, about having a voice of empathy, as an artist in such films as well.
Well, as an artist in a film, I think it's more of the director and the writer's voice. You just are the face for it. But yes, you're also agreeing with that thought to be a part of it. So yes, and I think when a visual medium is there, it is a very strong medium, and actor is the representative of all that is being written and all that is being conceptualized.
Correct.
So yeah, I guess that really holds a very strong impact on whoever is watching it. So yeah, I guess in that way, and even off it, I think with the kind of roles that you do and the kind of films that you do, the people feel your voice is important, and with all the puns intended. So, so, so,
Lovely.
so yeah, I guess yeah, we are fortunate. People look up to you for what you think, what you have to say, and I guess one has to be very responsible about it as well.
And I have to say, Punjabi cinema for me, I think it's going through a wonderful revival at the moment. I've been
Yes.
watching a few movies, and I am so deeply impressed with some of the stories that are coming out. What do you think is contributing towards this growth and this sort of creative sort of floodgates that have opened, would you say?
Because one, I think with the onset of your social medias and OTTs coming in, you have a lot of openings now. It's not just necessarily theatrical. So
Hmm.
if you're making a smaller film as well, you have other ways of releasing it as well. So people are able to do what they want to do, and it's not just necessarily based on just to star.
Hmm.
So people are wanting to hear stories, and it's nice. It's just that I think the thinking of the audience, the thought process has just changed. They want to hear different stories, to see different characters, and to have something different every time they go to the theater. So I think that's what's happening, not just in Punjab but all over.
It's interesting. I was speaking with this about to my friend actually about Punjabi films. She's Punjabi herself, and I kept saying that there's so many comedies, but she said a very interesting thought, and it made me think that Punjab actually, if you think about it, has suffered and gone through so much, right, as a state, right? Like it's gone through so much, and it's almost like comedy was a kind of it's kind of almost like that defense mechanism, I guess, of dealing with the hardships as well, you know? And I think it's also interesting because if we think about the sort of lives, especially like being a farmer is such a difficult thing and such an important aspect of our life, that in a way, perhaps that comedy was also a sense of escapism as well for them, but yet also relatable. Like, for example, like how the audiences would watch Amitabh Bachchan, watching a comedy film that's also very rooted, it kind of that gave them that sense of comfort as well, perhaps, right?
I guess who wouldn't want just to laugh? Yeah, I think, of course, bigger issues being there, but even on a very personal level, everyone's dealing with something. Not that easy. I mean, if I say, "How are you?" not necessarily you're going to say anything, but you would know how you're feeling that time.
Hmm.
And this just like this film I was shooting for, which I'm talking about, was a very heavy film. So what I would come back to is watch some comedy, watch a stand-up, laugh it out, and then b it's very important to laugh. It is very important to balance out your emotions and be sane. It's of course, when you make comedy films, it gives you that sense of happiness and well-being, and all is well in my world kind of feeling.
Hmm. Well, as Shaba would say, cool it. So that was so that was very lovely. No, that's wonderful to hear. But I think on a final note, you definitely seem to have some really exciting projects coming up. I believe you're doing Chhaava as well, Lakshman Utekar's film, which
Yes.
again seems to be a very different role. Like you said, you always surprise us with the distinct roles that you've done. And after Bandish Bandits, it's another very distinct role of yours. So how was your experience of actually stepping into the sort of world of the Maratha kingdoms and the valor and the sort of opulence that is sort of there in the film as well. How was that experience for you?
Can't really talk much about Java as of now, but yes, talking about that world that we were transferred to was beautiful. Just going on that set and feeling so royal and so beautiful that you have no choice but to feel the role that you are portraying. And I think Lakshman Utakar has shot some exceedingly beautiful shots that I have been supremely excited about. Sometimes you, as an actor, are surprised कि ये क्या हो गया? And that happened a lot in Chhaava. I said, "Arey, ye kya hua?" I haven't ever done these roles, and I'm glad this is happening now. This year has been, touchwood, really lovely with these kind of roles that I have done, which have not just made me excited about them, but also surprised. Uh, because otherwise, some role and then some role, but these are like strangely very, very different from each other. And then there's this other film that I've done with Manoj Bajpayee, which was directed by director Ben Reiki. He's also from London, and we've just finished it, and I play an antagonist in that. So that also is a very, very different role for me. And of course, this film that I told you, that is happening. Then a beautiful show that I've just finished, and two international films. So yeah, I think they're all different stuff of commercial cinema, of web shows, of short films. It's exciting that so many kind of different things are being made right now, and I think it's a party time for all creative people, for all storytellers, to be in today's times.
No, wonderful. Well, look, I'm really excited, and I think I'm always curious to see what other tricks you have up your sleeve and how
Lots of
impressive,
them.
yeah, and how impressive,
Please
like,
don't take 4 years to talk to me next, and we shall meet soon.
oh, definitely. Well, look, I think now that we've done this one, I think there's a lot of scope to do a lot more, honestly. And I'm really excited. And honestly, Divya, it's always such a pleasure to speak with you and your insights and I think your resilience, your craft, everything is so deeply inspiring and moving that it's always so wonderful. I think anyone who's even
Thank
aspiring to break into this industry will, I'm sure, will be feeling very motivated after listening to this interview. So thank you so much.
thank you, Anuj. Thank you, and you watch Bandish and tell me.
I will definitely do that. Thank you so
Yeah,
much,
thank
Divya.
you.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Bye bye.